Then the question we ask ourselves is, what are the principles that underline this public-private partnership arrangement? So say a government entity wants to enter into a project like this. So like I said, we want to have public toilets across the country, especially in the rural areas. And so we want to bring in a private sector entity who establish this public toilets. What are the principles that we have to follow when entering into public private partnership arrangement? So there are a couple of key principles that we need to understand when it comes to this issue about public private partnership arrangement. The first one is called value for money. Value for money. You see, in the public sector, one of the fundamental issue is value for money. Value for money on the at the end of the day is ensuring that resources are obtained at the least cost, and we are utilizing them for their intended purpose. So for every PPP project, what we are saying here is that it shouldn't cost us more than it should have. So it should be competitive generally. That is why for most of the public-private partnership arrangements, unless otherwise not possible, government has to open it up so that various private sector entities can bid for the contract. That way, government can select the best bid at the competitive price so we can get value for our money. And that is the first principle that each PPP project must adhere to. If something is done and another entity or another country is paying whatever, a $10 million for it, but we undertake that same thing and we are paying $12 million, that's too expensive. And sometimes it happens in this part of the world, in Africa, in some of these developing countries, because something that India would do under public-private partnership, and it will cost India, just an example, maybe $40 million under public-private partnership, a certain country will do the same thing. And they will say, oh, it is costing us 60 million. When India population is above a billion, like 1.5 billion, and the country in question, their population could be maybe 30, 40, or whatever, 50 million. So you ask yourself, what the heck is going on? Are we achieving value for money? That is the first principle. All PPP projects must achieve value for money. It means that they must not cost the country as much as possible. It should be a reasonable amount that we are paying for that particular contract. Not only that, in every PPP project, there are going to be a lot of risks. And so the arrangement must table out how risks are going to be allocated. So the second principle is risk allocation. The principle of risk allocation simply states that the party with the requisite skills or expertise should be responsible for the management of specific risks under the PPP project. Let's take that again. The party with the requisite skills or expertise in respect of a specific risk under the PPP arrangement should be required to manage that risk. So there are a lot of risks that a PPP project is going to be presenting. We have what we call construction risk, availability risks, maintenance risks, financial risk. All of these are types of risks that we are going to be facing on the PPP project. The contracting entity, the government, will have the requisite or the expertise to manage some of the risk. Then the private sector will also have some expertise to manage some of the other risks, especially when it comes to issues about financing, because primarily the private sector is bringing in the money. Anything that relates to the financial risk, they're going to be the ones to put in place measures to mitigate any impact of the risks. That could be through insurance. Okay, so there are certain PPP projects, it will require that the entity or the private sector to have an insurance backing the deal, so that as the deal goes ahead, if you can't get the money, then probably we can get an insurance to come and pay for the rest, so we get our project going as a country. But risk allocation is the second principle that we have to know about. Number 3 is ability to pay. Remember I told you that in certain PPP projects, One of the ways that the private sector gets their money back is through service charges. But like I told you earlier, you don't just get up and charge people anyhow. Under the PPP project, it is required that end users' purchasing power or ability to pay must be considered before charging them. So, not that yes, the private sector wants to maximize the wealth of the shareholders, the private sector wants to make money. So, in the name of making money, let's leave them to charge any money they want to charge. No, you have to charge, but take into consideration the people's ability to pay. Because remember, if you charge it too high, nobody will come and your capital is gone down. So you have to be reasonable to consider the people's ability to pay. And so that is where, if it is not possible to compromise that by the private sector so that the project will be prolonged, then the government can step in to offer some subsidies through the annual budget allocation for the difference. Like the example I gave you earlier in terms of the public toilet. You want to charge me 3 Ghana cedi to come and poop? What is wrong with you? I'm in the village somewhere. Come on, I just take a cutlass and dig a hole and I do my thing. I cover it. Nice air blows around me. I feel comfortable. I come back home. Yeah, it's unhealthy. That's to you. In the village, it's healthy. We do it well. We do it nice. So you have to be careful with it. So don't come and say it's unhealthy. We do it well. So it's healthy to us. But so government will then come in and say, hey, listen, these people cannot pay 3 Ghana cedi to poop. Okay, so charge probably 1 Ghana cedi or charge 1.5 Ghana cedi. That is the principle that you must know about ability to pay. When end users are to be charged, the private sector entity must consider their ability to pay before they charge them. Number 4 is going to be the principle in respect of transfer of knowledge. This is one of the fundamental issues at the end of the day, because you see, for the most part, many of the PPP projects that government undertakes, a lot of these will end up bringing in foreign entities, foreign investors. So at the end of the day, in the PPP arrangement, it has to be structured in such a way that there will be some knowledge transfer. So there has to be some capacity building for the locals, for the citizens, so that in the future, we can undertake that same project among ourselves, by ourselves, and we didn't have to bring a private person from outside a country, resulting into outflow of cash, outflow of capital, which will ultimately affect our foreign exchange as a country. And so it is important that we build into the public-private partnership agreement a plan by the private sector to transfer knowledge, to train people, to build the capacity of the locals, to ensure that that knowledge is passed to them. So in the future, there will be some locals here who governments can engage for them to execute such contract. The number 5, it's going to be local content. What does that mean? Like I told you earlier, many of the PPP projects, for the most part in this part of the world, will result into bringing in foreign entities, foreign investors into the country. Now, the local content principle is actually a legal framework which states that anything, any input that is needed for the project, which will be available or is available in Ghana, must be procured here in Ghana, so that we prevent the outflow of capital. Because many of these foreign entities, when they come, they would want to engage their partners, their fellow colleagues in their home country. And so when that happens, something that can be bought here, like the inputs that can be bought here, skills that are available here, they will not use it, because they would want to bring in people from their country so that all the money goes out there. To prevent that, there is the local content law, which mandates all PPP projects and various other activities that once the offer or once the inputs are available locally, they must be procured locally.